Hi everyone, it's Dr. Lalita here. Today we have a very special guest in the studio. Her name is Vanita. She is a counselor and she is in her final stages of handing in her PhD in psychology. Her research is really interesting, but that's not what we're here to discuss. So we're here today because I want to ask Vanita some questions about her journey of being a therapist and what happens in the therapeutic relationship, but also how that has an impact on her overall sort of life, if that makes sense. So it will make sense when I start asking the questions. But I'm going to go with the flow. Let's see what happens. Let's see the conversation that we do have. Because I also want to understand what the journey for Vanita was of self-love and learning to love yourself as a therapist.
So self-awareness, it's more of an umbrella term, and what the reason why I say it's an umbrella term is because there's a lot more to it than what you initially feel. So when I first understood the concept of self-awareness, it was very much of understanding who you are as a person. But it's not just about that. It's understanding who you are, who you used to be, who you want to be, who you are around others, who you are by yourself. So it's multi-layered and it's a lot more complex than what you may initially think, but which is why it's so important and so vital to get an understanding of what your self-awareness is and how it impacts your personal life and who you are as a person. I've trained as a counsellor. I've got my master's in counselling, and that was when I first understood the concept of self-awareness and what it's all about. And in terms of what I currently do, I offer therapeutic support in multiple platforms. I understand that we all lead very busy lives, so we can't always find the time and the place to meet your therapist or anyone face to face. So online counselling has been very effective, and so has telephone counselling. But in terms of how the self-awareness journey has helped me become the person who I am and the therapist that I am, is an appreciating the concept in itself and what it means to me. So back to when I started my training to become a counsellor, I found that my confidence was low anyway, but I didn't realise to what extent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was literally just because of my lack of self-awareness. Once I started appreciating what it actually is, and that was through the therapy room, through who I am as a therapist, because in terms of when you are a counsellor and when you're training to be a counsellor or a therapist, you video yourself how you are working with your client. Of course, you would probably remember that yourself, and then you would speak to your supervisor about how you're working therapeutically, and so your supervisor would speak to you about how your work's going, so on and so forth. So my self-awareness actually first started in a clinical setting in the therapy room. And that's when I understood how myself, who I am, and how I'm working with someone in a very safe environment where there's a lot of rules and, to ensure that everyone feels safe and understood and appreciated. That's when I started working on my self-awareness as well. So that's when I started appreciating that my input in this person's life and the journey that they're going through is so important. And then working outside of the room with my supervisor and how that's impacting myself and how that person is impacting me, and how that's going on to impact other parts of my life. And that was really interesting. So, okay, when you're working with a client and you may start. So, I was working with a client and they weren't in the room with me. This is a telephone counseling client. And this client is talking about how she finds that some people are afraid of her through initially meeting her. And I was talking to my to my supervisor about this, and I was saying, okay, this is quite interesting, and I'm not sure how to work with her on this because I'm not seeing her physically who she is as a person. I'm just hearing, just through communication, talking form of what she's saying. And my supervisor said, "Are you scared of her?" And I stopped and thought, I am.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And so when she said that, that really opened up so many other things of what's happening in the therapy room between me and the client. And it's not just about what the client's presenting with me, it's how I'm presenting to the client and how that communication and how that therapeutic relationship is happening, how it's working. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Because nothing was said for that person to instill any fear in me or to make me feel vulnerable. The relationship that we had was purely therapeutic. It started with the counselling contract, it started with the work, and we had quite a few sessions as well. But then there was this feeling in the back of my mind, and I didn't quite understand what was going on until I had my supervision. And so that was quite interesting for me to acknowledge that there's something going on for that person that's leading them to have reactions, and I'm having that reaction too.
That is really
And
interesting.
that's something that we worked on in therapy as well. So I was able to communicate with my client about that as well and say, you know what, that's what's going on for me. Let's work on that. And that encouraged me to be vulnerable as well, because it's not just the client that's being vulnerable here, it's you as a therapist, it's you as a client, as a counsellor. And so that's something that helped my practice a lot. Yeah, 100%. I am very confident to say that I wouldn't be the person that I am now if it wasn't for the clients that I've worked with, because it's a two-way relationship. And it's not just as a professional, it's who I am as a person. Because seeing my clients and hearing as well, I don't always see them, but hearing and seeing that my clients are vulnerable and feel safe around me has encouraged me to feel safe and vulnerable around others. And that's where my confidence grew. And that's where my self-awareness grew, not just in the therapy room, but then within my social circle and with my family and with my friends. What I realized was that the people that I was choosing to surround myself with weren't necessarily bringing out the best in me, but I was choosing to have them around me because I felt that it was needed for some reason. And it was within my self-awareness that I started to realize that, hold on, the journey that I'm going on at the moment and the journey that my friends may be going on at the moment isn't quite matching. And we're in each other's lives. But why? What are we bringing into one each other's lives? That's, what are we helping one another to flourish with? What are we doing to bring that the best out in one another? And so whilst I was able to build on a skill and a quality that was really, really important, it did mean that I lost some friendships along the way. But it was for a reason no other than we were kind of going towards in separate journeys. It was a loss in the sense of, if you're thinking kind of numerically, how many friends I had, then losing that many friends. But I don't necessarily see it as a loss, because something that's helped me, again, working with my clients, is that you may be in a period in life where you have your friends, you have your people around you, and that may be school, that may be in a structured environment like college or university or whatever else, work, but then that's because you're on the same journey together. That's limited. And once that journey stops, once you're at the end of that path and you're beginning to transition to another area in your life, that will of course change. And it's not necessarily a loss, but more of an appreciation for the time that you had with one another and what the both of you or whoever's involved gained from that. There's a couple of ways I went about it, and I made a conscious decision to keep some people close with me, but then I recognised within others, because I wasn't being the person who I wanted to be, I chose not to keep them in my life. And that was down to communication. So with everyone that where we were on the separate paths, there was that communication there of, you know what, things aren't really kind of going our way at the moment. And, we never know, as time goes on, we may find ourselves in a similar path again, and that'll be great. But right now, my priorities are elsewhere, and so are yours. So there was that kind of genuine conversation that came up organically as well. It wasn't something that was forced. And so that was something that there was never a point where there was I don't know, like resentment or anything like that. It was just an appreciation for the time that we had together, but that may not be the case now. Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that is very, very real. When you do come to a point where the therapy, so not just therapy, sorry, like in terms of who you are growing as a person and the person that you're becoming, and whatever transition you're going into, you do have loss, and there is grief, and there is confusion. And those are the very, very raw emotions, raw feelings that are going on. And it's about appreciating them for what they are. Because, and this is something that was quite difficult for me to get my head around personally, because it was almost like, why am I experiencing these negative feelings if it was for the best? But something that did help me further down the line to understand is that you wouldn't be feeling these negative emotions if it wasn't for the fact that you had such a positive relationship once upon a time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And you can't have one without the other. And after a long time, I did learn to start embracing those negative emotions, because they are there for a reason. And it just makes what you've experienced something that's real and it's raw and it's happening. So it's just a matter of appreciating each moment for what it is, rather than wanting to push it away because it's difficult to acknowledge. And that's where the self-awareness came into play as well. It's not just about who you are growing as this wonderful person, but it's also everything that comes with it. And to be honest, something that really helped with that was mindfulness, because what that kind of encourages you to do is to appreciate each moment for what it is, without any judgment, without any thought whatsoever. I think they can, to be honest. And it's something that I use even to this day now. I really enjoy guided mindfulness meditation. I would suggest it with clients if I feel clinically, with my clinical judgment, if they feel, it would benefit them. But the reason why I would always suggest it is because on the basis that you really begin to understand who you are truly as a person through the use of mindfulness, because it's, again, what I just touched upon briefly about how you're appreciating those negative emotions or negative feelings for what they are, rather than wanting to push them away because they make you feel bad. And it's easier said than done, definitely. And the whole concept of mindfulness is as well. But once you do get the hang of it, it is something that's really, really powerful. Personally helped me, with that negative emotion, is understanding what it means for you. So, anger, upset, frustration, loss, grief, anything that's negative, is understanding what it actually means for you, and something that's helped me personally. Yeah, so what's really, really helped me in the past is writing therapy. And that's not something that I learnt in my course. It's just something that I just started doing because I felt that there was a lot kind of going on in my head. I didn't know what to do with all these thoughts. I didn't know what to do with all these emotions. And all I knew was I wanted them out. So what I started doing was I just wrote what was going on for me. And I just wrote and wrote and wrote until there was nothing else to think and there was nothing else to write. And by the end of it, I was left with, honestly, pages and pages of just stuff. But what was really interesting about that and what I really enjoyed was not enjoyed, but what I found quite fascinating and interesting was where my thoughts went and how my thoughts went from one to another. And that really helped in my self-awareness, actually. But it really helped me understand why I was feeling frustrated at that time, or why I was feeling angry, or why I was feeling lost. And that then helped me decide where I want to go. Because of course, when you're feeling any form of negative emotions, it's knowing you don't want to feel like that, but not knowing where to go. But through the form of writing therapy, that really helped me. And that's something that I do now. Whenever I'm feeling any kind of confusion, loss, anything, I use writing therapy to help me understand myself, what's going on for me, and where I want to go with this, whatever the situation is. So, in terms of kind of the relationships I had with other people and how that changed with me and with my friends and with my relatives, is that that's an interesting one, because I do wonder whether my relatives did notice a change within me. Whilst I did, and whilst I was appreciating aspects of them, I wonder if that did change within me, between them and me. But within my friends, that's something that I make a conscious effort to ask them, in terms of how do you think I have changed within this time period, or whatever's happened or whatnot. And so that's something that it's really interesting to hear from their point of view. I think it's interesting to hear others' perception of me, because whilst I have my own perception of how I see myself and how I look at myself in the mirror, that will of course be different to how my mum sees me, how my sister sees me, how my friend sees me, how my partner sees me. So it is really interesting to hear how their perception is, and I like to discuss that, and vice versa as well. How others around me, how I kind of see them, if that makes sense. I think is linked really, really closely. They are very much interlinked to one another. So in terms of, so what I said kind of towards the beginning, when I first started the masters, I was aware that I didn't have a lot of confidence, and also a lack of self-awareness. And throughout the journey that I went on, and in terms of with my relationships with my clients, and then with my supervisor, and with my friends, partners, so on and so forth. And that has shaped me to the person that I am now. And that is literally through self-awareness. And that is very much linked to self-love and learning to love yourself. I'm sure you've heard the phrase of, you have to love yourself before anyone else does. And that's something that has really resonated with me, because it's something that, if you're in a place where you don't love yourself,
Yeah.
and you're not enjoying your own personal space, that you enjoy company with yourself, or just time with yourself, is that codependency that you need others around you. And
Which makes sense, yeah.
and then when you need others around you, it's that it's well, what are their needs? Because if your needs are based on others, then well, they also have needs as well. That's what it means for me.
Yeah.
And so that's something that has really resonated with me, and that's something that I've always brought forward and that I've always encouraged around others, not even in a therapeutic setting, just with others around me. And so the whole I Love Me movement is something that I feel so important, because it's not just, oh, I'm a great person, I love myself. It's everything that comes with it. It's the self-awareness. It's about how your confidence grows. And something to take away as well is that you're never the same person that you are. I'm not the same person that I was 3 years ago, last month, last week, even this morning. There's always things that you learn as time goes on with any experience that you have, whether that's positive or negative. And it's about appreciating those moments and learning how it's impacting you through self-reflection, whether that is through writing therapy, whether that is through meditation. But it's the whole act of self-love, and which is why I do believe that self-love and self-awareness are very much interlinked with one another. Well, the thing is, it's something that is always going to change as time goes on. And the whole I Love Me movement is not necessarily an individualistic thing, it's a collective thing. We as individuals, we all have our own experiences of ourselves, but we can also appreciate how we all can learn to love each other as well. Despite our differences, despite the similarities, despite any kind of I don't know, any kind of altercations, anything. It's about appreciating one another for who we are, and who we are as a collective. Stand up for yourself. Oh my God, I wish I could tell myself to just stand up for all those occasions that I decided to keep my mouth shut for whatever reason. Any opportunities where I might have been, someone said, no, you can't do this, or you can't go into that, or I'm sorry, you haven't had this opportunity. Stand up for yourself, because if you don't, who will? And I think that kind of goes back to what I just mentioned, actually, about how when you learn to love yourself, you're not depending on others. So when you stand up for yourself, you have that confidence in yourself. You know what? I did this. I stood up for myself. I don't have any regrets with what I said, because I believed in my principles. And that really helps the self-confidence to grow.
That's beautiful. And do you like your badge?
Yes, I love it.
So I just realized while I was asking all them questions and while we were just having that interview, was that Vanita and Lalita, they rhyme. Vanita, Lalita. Da, 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 da. Anyway, that was an amazing interview. And I just want to thank Vanita for sharing her experiences, not only her professional experiences, but her personal experiences with us. Because it helps us to understand the processes that therapists go through as well while they're working with clients. It's about the client in that space. And in that time, but actually there's a process going on in the background with the therapist, and the therapist will always be developing because they're always working with a different client and bringing in different experiences that will trigger different things for a therapist. So it was just really interesting to hear that, and also about how interpersonal relationships can change, and if they do change, it's about communicating and giving clarity, like, look, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through, and being able to take back or listen to what the other person's saying, but also to have that exchange that, look, this is where I am right now, this is what's going on for me right now. And that's with family members, that's with friends, that's with work colleagues, with all of these different relationships around us. Yeah, you are going to change, and it's okay to change. And I find that when I work with a lot of clients want to move and they want to transform to the next stage. But as they're doing that, they have the relationships that they had during this space, the exchange of needs that they were giving with friends, with family members, with work colleagues, that is going to be different to what you're giving out here. And I find that a lot of people are like, no, I'll go back there because it feels comfortable. to deal with other people's judgments of you or how other people see you, because there's this part of you that feels like, but if I go there, I'm being selfish, or I'm not, it's not fair because I'm not then being there for everyone else. But actually, you need to do what's right for you. And in order to change, sometimes you do need to also change your perspective of how you see your relationships. But what Vanita said there is very, very important about how actually giving clarity and being able to communicate is very, very important. But first, communicate with yourself, understand what's going on for you. If you're noticing something around you that is being a bit, what's going on here? Talk about it, speak about it. But before you speak about it, speak to yourself about it as well, and be like, okay, what is this going on? Because remember, everything that we see in the outside world, everything that's going on, our relationships, everything in terms of like our mindset, everything with our career, our opportunities that we see, it all starts with us. It all starts with that relationship with us. So sometimes we can be in a place where not loving ourselves enough means that we're trying to get this enoughness from the world around us. But actually, when you get to a phase where you're developing your enoughness and you start to realize how beautiful and amazing you are, guess what? You're not going to seek that enoughness from the world anymore, because you know that that enoughness is there within you, and you're standing in your power and you're feeling that enoughness. And yeah, because of that, your relationships will change. Yeah, because of that, opportunities will come up. Yeah, because of that, your mindset will change. Yeah, because of that, the relationship with yourself will change. So I just want to thank Vanita from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. We're going to go and catch up now because I want to hear all about her research. So, and more about peanut butter. So without babbling on anymore, I am going to leave it there. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you. Take what you need from this and subscribe. So if you want to hear more interviews, if you want to get involved, if you want to ask any questions, just subscribe, comment, share, whatever you want to do. And sharing lots of love and blessings your way today. Have an amazing day and whatever you're doing, and take care, and I will speak to you soon. Bye bye.